and good afternoon to all of you. We are having a conversation one more time with Brandon Luna and Hugo Vargas. Thank you both for coming over and spending some time with us this afternoon. The goal of this conversation is to provide some information, some basic information about investments, in about why the youth of today should, go back, pay attention to the market, invest rather than keeping their money in the bank. So let's start with the basic question: why, when I get a job maybe at 18 and I start making some money, why shouldn't I just put my money in the bank and let it be there?
Yeah. So for most people, that's the first thought, of course, get the money and then put it in the bank account and then, go on with your day. But what happens is we lose money every single day in a bank account. And that's because what banks will do is they will take your money and, instead of, putting it in a safe like most of us think and then just waiting for, so-and-so to come back, what they do is they take your money, they print more of it, and then they lend it out to more people. This is called fractional lending. And so banks have the power, like I said, to just print money out of thin air. And what happens is every single day money that is being printed, new money that is being printed, the old money is losing value, thus inflation. And what happens is banks, when you open an account with them, usually offer you a 0.03 interest rate. And inflation in the economy as a whole is around 2 to 3%. So, for example, let's say a pack of gum today that costs $1, next year is going to cost $1.03. And it might seem small and insignificant, but now if you really think about millions of transactions that we as consumers make every year, it really starts to add up, and you can really start feeling the effects of it.
And so if I don't plan to keep my money at home and I don't want to make the bank richer, what should I do with my money? So Hugo has been talking to us about, again, the problems with just leaving the money in the bank. And the money that is in the bank is using it to lend it to other people so they can make a profit, and they basically don't give you anything back. And in fact, you're losing money. So let's start with Brandon. Brandon, what, from your side as an 18-year-old, what are you doing with your money instead of investing it in maybe just putting it in the bank?
Well, what I do is just mitigate my bank account balance to a high interest savings account. Like Wealthfront, they provide 1.87 annual percentage yield, and each year it compounds. They used to offer something like 2.57% every year, but they changed their terms. But it's a good way to just have your money grow without you doing anything, but just having it sit there, and it's just easy to withdraw and deposit with your original bank. And also, instead of just leaving it in the bank, it's good to just reinvest it into the stock market, whether it be dividends in like profitable companies, day trading, which is a bit risky, but the rewards like very high as well. And also just having enough money to have rental properties, flip cars, houses, or even start a small business and scale it up throughout like the years. But instead of just having your money sit there for you, just have it put to work and just have you generate more money in the long term.
And so you specifically invest in the stock market, which has a higher risk than just putting it in this high yield type of savings accounts with all these online banks. Why do you take the risk?
Because it lets you learn how the stock market goes, how certain events make the stock market fluctuate and crash, and it gives you a very informative background and the fundamentals to be a consistent trader when it comes to risking less but constantly profiting even more throughout time. And it's just like a bigger payoff. Let's say you start an account with like $150,000. You could just start compounding every time you get a significant amount of profits. Profits can range from like 100 a day to 1,000 a day to probably 20,000 a day, or totaling up to like 50,000 a month. And it's just like trading and investing in the stock market with, somewhat of a risk can lead to like uncapped salaries compared to a normal job.
And for you, Hugo, let
Right.
me start with your investments. What type of investments have you been doing? And let's start with how long have you been doing these investments?
Okay. Yeah. So as of right now, what I do is I dividend growth invest. And it sounds a little bit complicated, but it's basically what I do is I find solid, stable companies that most people have heard of every day, like Walmart, Target, etc. Big companies like that. And I find those companies, and I make sure that they've been paying dividends to investors year in, year out. And not only just that, they've been growing dividends. And for those of you that don't know what dividends are, it's basically just small payments to investors. For example, if I invest in Apple, and Apple pays a dividend of, let's say, 40 cents, that means that I'm going to get 40 cents. It could be every month or every 3 months. It just depends on the company. And so what I do is I find these companies and I put my money in them. And so I get those dividend payments, and what I do is I get those payments and I put them right back into those same companies and wait. And the next time they pay me, it's going to be more. And then what I do is get that money and I put it right back into those same companies. And the next time they pay me, I'm going to get paid more. And that's taking advantage of compound interest, which is basically earning interest on interest. And I want you guys to think of it as a snowball. It starts off really small and insignificant, but as it starts rolling down the hill, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And pretty soon, the account is going to be paying me more than I can actually fund it. So, for example, let's say I put in about $200 a week. Pretty soon, I'm going to be earning $300, $400 a week, and it's going to be faster than I can put my money in. And it just starts growing and compounding by itself. And the cool thing about the stock market is there's all sorts of ways you guys can put your money in. There's passive investing. For people that don't really want to do the research aspect of it, you can buy something called an index fund or an exchange traded fund. And it's basically, I want you guys to think of this as a basket. I want you guys to think the index fund as a basket. And you guys buy the basket, and inside the basket are a whole bunch of companies. And you still get paid dividends as well, like myself, for buying individual companies. But instead, you buy the basket, and you get paid the same that I'm getting paid every month. And you don't really have to do much. It's just kind of like a set it and forget it type of thing. And I've been investing since I first turned 18, and before that, I opened up a custodial account in the name of another a person that's 18 years or older, and they would run it for me basically. And then as soon as I turned 18, I got control of the account and started doing my own thing. But I've been doing this since 17 years old, 17, around there.
So, Brandon, why is it that a 17 and 18 and 19-year-old teenager shouldn't go and buy the latest vehicle, which is what a lot of teenagers tend to do? Why shouldn't they just do that, but instead go and invest in the market?
Because they're generally just, investing into depreciating assets, like liabilities, like cars and stuff that don't bring any monetary value over time. And it's just like they end up in a point in their lives later on where it's like, I don't have any money. It's like, instead of just wasting your money on things that do not give you a return on investment over a significant amount of years, you should start educating yourself and investing in things that actually grow your wealth, so you're later on able to afford all these things without breaking the bank and then ending up in a financial situation that you can't really get out of unless you really work your butt off to accumulate wealth again.
So you don't buy a brand new car at the age of 18?
No.
You don't convince your parents to sign off on that $30 and $40 and maybe $50,000 car loan, but instead you learn how to make that money work for you so that it can continue to multiply.
Yeah, like I'd rather have the money work for me and then have my assets pay off, like have me being able to afford what I want, But either way, if I could afford it off the lot, I would rather just build my credit and just have those payments on time because I know I have the money, and it increases my credit worthiness, and it just helps me get loans in the future if I were to jumpstart a business and I don't have enough crowdfunding. So it's just strategizing and planning out.
And Hugo, what originally caught your attention about the market? Right. I don't think your parents are investors. I don't think your parents have the training to be able to do this. What makes you so different than your parents or your family members? What brought your attention to investing?
Yeah, first I want to say, coming from a family that just believes in hard work, I've never really, well, that I know of, none of my family members, invest or have invested before. It's something that's completely new to them. They don't have no clue what that is. And I'm sure it's the same thing with a bunch of families worldwide. And of course, like I said, schools don't really teach us. No schools. It doesn't matter if you're in a private school, public school. Nobody really has a curriculum for this type of stuff. And for me, really, it came out of curiosity. I've always been a curious person. And as mentioned in the interview prior, 2009, that's when I was introduced to money. And during the recession, how I was affected by that. And that traveled with me all the way to my high school years, my early teenage years, where I was yet again curious. I was telling myself, there has to be another way. There has to be more ways to make money than just go work and, work that 9 to 5, go home, and that's it. Because I saw what happens if you just work one job and then you lose that job. It's terrible. You have no income. And so eventually I was asking around, and I was introduced to a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where it talks about assets and liabilities and all these sorts of things. And it starts talking about ways to make more money. And that's when I was really introduced to the stock market. And that's when I indulged in it completely, and I learned about it. And it's been like discovering fire. Yeah.
And Brandon, in your situation, what caught your attention?
I was very curious on alternative ways to make money than just going and working at McDonald's at like part-time or full-time like some of my friends were. And I just started, gaming a lot. I invested a lot of time into video games, and I was a pretty high-ranked player back in 2015. And then I started monetizing a YouTube channel off that success. And it got a pretty good following, and I just monetized my content and saw that with monetizing my content and having a decent following, I was being able to rack around like 60, 70 a week. And it was like, well, I'm making money doing something I love. And then later on I got into competitive gaming because just like gaming casually kind of just, wasn't a thing anymore for me. And I made a significant amount of money playing tournaments and just matches against other players. And it was just like, you play like a 30-minute match for like $100, and then it just, keeps on compounding every time you win. And so like it has the same effect when you're entering tournaments, and it's just like you're doing something you love and getting paid for it. And then later on, I was like, how can I just expand and have various sources? And then I was just researching on Google, and I heard about the stock market before from several family members and teachers. But for my family members, they really never actually dove into it. They just knew the idea of it. So I was like curious, and then I just Googled, did research, and I found multiple ways that someone could make a lot of money. And I got exposed to the idea of investing, having multiple sources of income, because if you just work one job and the job just falls apart, you have nothing to fall back on. But if you have multiple sources of income, one thing fails and then you have the rest, which just provides like a safety cushion in the long run.
And both of you, it sounds like you're both willing to teach other individuals. I really want to focus on teenagers. I think that naturally parents and other family members will get interested if we get teenagers to again, not buy that $20,000-$30,000 car that they cannot afford, And instead, right, investing and making money so that you can retire. And so I'm interested in finding out a little bit more about custodial accounts. Can one of you tell me, or both of you, tell me more about custodial accounts?
Yeah. So basically, what a custodial account is if you're 18 years or older, you can open up an account for a minor. It could be a 1-year-old, 2-year-old. It doesn't really matter. And you basically run the account until that person that you opened it for is 18 themselves, and then they can take it over from there. And so I think that's a great way to start your kids off on the right foot before they even turn 18, because not only that, you're taking advantage of, like I said, compound interest, which is what, like Einstein said, the eighth wonder of the world. By the time your child is 18, they already have thousands and thousands of dollars that have been made and invested in the stock market, which they can use to, further their college education or any other endeavors that they would like to pursue as well.
Okay, and then the last question is, can you both share your information? It sounds like you're willing to support people who are interested. I'm definitely interested in working with teenagers, because I think if we get Latinx youth to, get involved in investing, naturally their parents are going to follow. Naturally, other family members are going to get interested. Can you give us that information?
Yeah, well, one of my social contacts is Instagram. My handle is dhashed, DEHASHED. And, just send a DM or anything, and I'll be glad to respond.
Yeah, and like you said, helping Latinx youth, because, I come from a Hispanic family, a Hispanic background, and my family doesn't really know about any of this stuff. And so in turn, what happens is a lot of, the kids don't really learn it either, because their parents don't really know it either. So I'd be, more than happy to help out. If there's a will, then I'm willing to help you guys out. And I have Instagram. It's vargashugo.18. Again, vargashugo.18. And then I have a YouTube channel where I actually do post financial content, and I try to make it as simple as possible and digestible for you, the viewers. And that's just my name, Hugo Vargas, HUGO Vargas.
And with that, I want to thank you for being with us. And we know that you're going to come over to the Mecha conference on February 21st, and you're going to be doing some training, some basic trainings about finances and investments and all of this stuff, including a little bit more about this custodial type of account, so that people can become familiar with it.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.